The sky above New York City turned black at exactly 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Not the black of storm clouds or eclipse darkness. This was different. This was the black of something massive, blocking out the sun itself. People stopped walking. Cars halted in the middle of intersections. A million faces turned upward at once. And there, hovering so close you could see the details carved into its hull, was a ship. But calling it a ship was like calling the ocean a puddle. It stretched from Manhattan to Brooklyn, a floating city of dark metal and pulsing lights that hummed with a sound felt in the chest rather than heard with ears. Sarah Chen dropped her coffee cup on the sidewalk. The ceramic shattered, but she didn't notice. Her phone buzzed. Then buzzed again and again. Emergency alerts screamed from every device on every person around her. But Sarah's eyes stayed locked on the impossible thing above. Within 60 seconds, every screen on Earth lit up at once. Televisions in Tokyo, phones in Paris, billboards in Mumbai, even old radios crackled to life with the same signal. The image that appeared was not human. Face that stared down at 8 billion people had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, skin like polished obsidian, mouth that split too wide when it opened. Humans of Earth. The voice spoke in perfect English, perfect Mandarin, and perfect Spanish. Every person heard it in their own language, which somehow made it worse. I am Emperor Thraxus of the Krathion Empire. Your world has been surveyed, your species has been evaluated, your fate has been decided. Sarah felt her legs go weak. Around her, people began to sob. Others stood frozen like statues. The Emperor's 4 eyes narrowed with something that might have been amusement. For 10,000 of your years, the Krathion Empire has brought order to chaos. We have civilized 300 species across 200 star systems. And now, we extend our grace to you. Grace. The word hung in the air like poison. You will join the Empire as laborers. Your strong will work our minds. Your intelligent will maintain our systems. Your skilled will build our ships. In return, we offer you protection, purpose, a place in the grand design of galactic civilization. Someone near Sarah screamed. The sound cut through the terrible silence. You have 48 hours to surrender your governments and prepare for integration. Resist, and we will demonstrate why resistance is futile. We have glassed 15 worlds who chose defiance over wisdom. Their names are forgotten. Their cities are dust. The Emperor leaned closer to whatever camera broadcast his face across Earth. Choose wisely, humans. Slaves who cooperate live comfortable lives. Slaves who resist do not live at all. The screens went black. The ship remained, blotting out the sky like a wound in reality. Sarah's phone rang. It was her mother calling from Seattle. Sarah answered to hear her crying. Around the world, similar calls flooded every network. Families reaching for each other as the world ended. But in the Swiss Alps, 3 miles beneath a mountain that tourists visited for skiing and chocolate, something else was happening. General Marcus Webb sat in a chair that had waited 50 years for this moment. Around him, screens showed the panic spreading across the globe. He watched the riots starting in Moscow, the prayer gatherings filling the streets of Jerusalem, the United Nations emergency session where diplomats shouted over each other in 15 languages. A younger officer stood beside him, her face pale. Sir, the projections are catastrophic. If they bombard from orbit, we can't stop them. Our missiles can't reach that high. Our fighters would be swatted like insects. Webb didn't look away from the screens. His weathered face remained calm, almost peaceful. Lieutenant Hayes, how old are you? A question caught her off guard. 26, sir. Then you don't remember. Webb stood slowly, his joints protesting. He was 73 years old. He'd spent 50 of those years preparing for this day. You don't remember the Oregon incident? Hayes shook her head. Webb walked to a massive steel door built into the living rock of the mountain. His handprint on the scanner. Retina scan. DNA confirmation. The door had never been opened. Not once in 5 decades. It groaned as ancient hydraulics woke from their long sleep. 1976, Webb said as the door slowly opened. A farmer in Oregon found something in his field. Thought it was a meteor at first. Called the sheriff. Sheriff called the army. Army called everyone. The door finished opening. Beyond it stretched a tunnel lit by emergency lights. It wasn't a meteor. Hayes followed him into the tunnel. Their footsteps echoed. It was a probe, Webb continued. Alien technology. Damaged, leaking data. The government kept it quiet. Took the thing apart piece by piece in a facility that officially doesn't exist. They reached an elevator. Webb pressed the single button. The elevator didn't go up. It went down. What we found in that probe's memory banks changed everything. The elevator descended for 2 full minutes. Hayes felt her ears pop 3 times. The probe had records, Webb said quietly. Star charts, history files, information about the galaxy we live in. And we learned something terrifying, Lieutenant. We learned that Earth was already marked, already claimed. The Krathion Empire had tagged our system for future harvest. They were just waiting for us to develop enough to be useful. The elevator stopped. The doors opened onto something impossible. Hayes gasped. They stood on a platform overlooking a cavern so vast she couldn't see the far wall. But she could see what filled it. Rows upon rows of ships. Human ships, sleek and deadly, bristling with weapons that looked nothing like Earth technology. Thousands of them, tens of thousands, all waiting in the darkness. We've been preparing for 50 years, Webb said. His voice carried a weight that made Hayes' chest tight. Every nation on Earth contributed. Every secret budget. Every Black Ops program. We built these ships in pieces across 1,000 hidden facilities. We trained crews in secret. We developed weapons by reverse engineering that probes technology and then making it better, making it human. Hayes couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Webb's communicator crackled. Voice reported. Sir, the underground cities are at 97% capacity. 8 billion people evacuated and hidden in 72 hours was always optimistic, but we're close. Good, Webb replied. Seal the surface entrances. Make it look abandoned. Hayes found her voice. The evacuation. That's why you let them broadcast for 48 hours. You needed time to hide everyone. Webb smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator that had just finished setting a trap. The Krathian think we're panicking, scrambling, helpless. They've done this 300 times before. They expect governments to surrender within hours. Leaders begging for mercy. He turned to face her fully. They don't know that every leader on Earth has known about them for decades. They don't know we've been unified in secret longer than most of them have been alive. They don't know that humanity has spent 50 years and the combined wealth of our entire species preparing for this exact moment. Above them, barely visible in the shadows of the cavern's roof, something moved. Hayes looked up and felt her heart stop. The moon. They had hollowed out the moon. The entire lunar surface was opening like a flower. Mechanical petals pulling back to reveal the greatest military force humanity had ever built. Webb's communicator crackled again. Prometheus fleet is ready for launch, sir. Awaiting your order. The general looked at the ships. His life's work, Earth's hidden fang. They came to our world, he said softly. Threatened our families, called us slaves. They expected us to kneel. He pressed the communicator, launched the fleet, send them a message. What message, sir? Webb's eyes gleamed with something cold and absolute. Tell them that they didn't discover Earth. They triggered a trap 50 years in the making.
Tell them.
They wanted slaves. He paused. They found soldiers. The first ship launched with a roar that shook the mountain, then another, and 1,000 more. The sky above Earth filled not with alien ships, but with human fury. The Krathion had declared humanity slaves. Earth was about to teach them the most expensive lesson in galactic history. Some species kneel when threatened. Humans bare their teeth. 48 hours was about to feel like an eternity for an empire that had never known fear. Commander Zelthek stood on the bridge of the Krathion flagship, sipping a drink that cost more than a small planet's yearly output. The liquid shimmered with colors that didn't exist in Earth's spectrum. He'd earned this drink. Another world conquered without firing a shot? Another species added to the Empire's workforce? 30 hours remaining, his second officer reported. The humans still haven't responded. Zalthek waved a dismissive hand. They're arguing among themselves. Happens every time. Some want to fight. Most want to live. The practical ones always win. He'd overseen 47 planetary acquisitions. This was the easy part, the waiting, but something felt wrong. Sir, the sensor officer's voice carried a strange note. The planet's gone quiet. Yeah, just their governments. Everything. No broadcasts. No communications. Traffic has stopped. Zoltek set down his drink. Stopped. Their cities appear abandoned, sir. Scanning shows minimal life signs on the surface. That was new. Zoltek felt the first tickle of unease in his stomach. In 47 conquests, he'd seen panic, riots, mass prayers, military posturing, but never silence, never emptiness. Run a deep scan. Find them. The sensor officer worked for several minutes. When she looked up, her face had changed color. Sir, they're underground. All of them. They're massive structures beneath the surface. It's tunnel networks. Cities. How is this possible? Our initial surveys showed no such infrastructure. Zoltek moved to the sensor display. The readings made no sense. The tunnels were everywhere, connecting continents, housing billions. The construction would have taken decades, multiple decades. When did they build this? He whispered. No species had ever prepared for the Krathion. The Empire was a secret whispered in the dark corners of the galaxy. Theses didn't know they were coming until the ships arrived. Yet somehow, impossibly, the humans had built an entire secondary civilization underground. Get me the Emperor, Zoltek ordered. His voice didn't sound as steady as he wanted. Before the communication could connect, every alarm on the bridge screamed at once. Energy spike, the sensor officer shouted. Massive energy spike from their moon. On the main display, Earth's moon began to change. Lines of light appeared across its surface, geometric patterns that definitely weren't natural. Zoltek had stared at that moon during their approach. It had looked normal, dead, gray and lifeless like a moon should be. The lines widened. The moon's surface split along fault lines that were too perfect to be accidents. Sections of lunar crust pulled back on massive hydraulic arms that should not exist, should not be possible. The moon wasn't opening. It was revealing. By the eternal dark, someone whispered behind Zoltek. The moon was hollow, carved out, transformed into the largest military hangar in human history. And inside, where ancient rock should have been, sat thousands of warships. They weren't primitive. They didn't look like the chemical rockets and atmospheric fighters that human militaries had shown in the Empire's surveillance. These were FTL-capable destroyers, carriers, dreadnoughts bristling with weapons that looked disturbingly familiar. Those are our weapon signatures, the tactical officer said, his voice climbing toward panic. Those are Krathion pulse cannons, singularity missiles. What do they have our technology? The first human ship launched. Then 10 more. Then 100. Then the launches became a continuous stream of metal and fury pouring from the moon like blood from a wound. They moved with precision that spoke of training. Years of training, decades of preparation. Zoltek's hands trembled as he gripped the command console. All ships to battle stations, raise shields. Charge weapons. The communication system crackled to life without anyone calling it up. A human face appeared on every screen in the fleet, an old man with gray hair and eyes like winter itself. Krathion Fleet, the human said in flawless Krathion language. I am General Marcus Webb of Earth Defense Command. You violated our space. You've threatened our families. You've called us slaves. The old man smiled, and there was nothing kind in it. You made 3 mistakes. First, you assumed we were ignorant. Second, you assumed we were weak. Third, you assumed we would kneel. The human fleet formed into attack formations with military precision that shouldn't exist. Zoltek had seen the human wars. Messy, chaotic, emotional. These ships moved like they'd trained together for lifetimes. 50 years ago, the general continued, your probe crashed on our world. We found it, studied it, learned from it. We discovered that the galaxy already had masters. Already had chains waiting for us. We made a choice. The human ships accelerated toward the Krathian fleet. Weapon systems lit up across their hulls. We chose to never be slaves, General Webb said. Launch weapons. Show them what humans do to would-be masters. The battle began with light. Searing, terrible light. Human missiles crossed the distance in seconds, moving faster than Krathion sensors had calculated as possible. They'd improved the stolen technology, made it better, made it human. Zoltek watched 40 ships disappear from his tactical display in the first volley. Just gone, erased by weapons that had been Krathion designs a lifetime ago, but were something deadlier now. Return fire, Zoltek screamed. All ships, weapons free. The Krathion fleet opened up with the firepower that had shattered defenses across 200 worlds. Pulse cannons that could crack planets, missiles that could atomize cities, enough destructive force to sterilize a solar system. The human ships scattered like fish, their formation breaking into hundreds of individual units. But it wasn't chaos. It was something the Krathion had never encountered before. Organized chaos. Each ship moved independently, but as part of a greater whole. They dodged, weaved, covered each other, fought like a pack instead of a formation. "They're not fighting like a military," the tactical officer said, bewildered. "They're fighting like predators." A human cruiser took a direct hit that should have vaporized it. The ship's front section exploded in a brilliant flash, but the rear section kept coming, engines still firing. Zalthek watched in horror as the dying ship aimed itself at a Krathion destroyer and accelerated. "They're ramming," someone shouted. The human ship hit the destroyer at a significant fraction of light speed. Both vessels vanished in an explosion that lit up the dark side of Earth. The shockwave knocked nearby ships off course. But before the debris had even finished expanding, 3 more human ships filled the gap, firing into the hole the suicide ship had created in the Krathion formation. "Pull back," Zalthek ordered. "Reform the line. We still outnumber them 5-1. But the numbers didn't matter like they should. The humans fought without fear, without hesitation. A single human fighter darted between capital ships too small for main weapons to target, firing precision strikes at shield generators and weapon mounts. When Krathion fighters moved to intercept, the human pilot led them into the crossfire of their own fleet, using the Krathion ships as cover. The communication channel crackled again. A different human voice. Young female. Scared but defiant. "This is Captain Chen of the Roosevelt. We're hit. Engines failing. Core critical." A pause filled with the sound of alarms. "Redirecting to enemy flagship. If we're dying, we're taking you with us." Zalthek's eyes went wide. Evasive maneuvers. Now, the Roosevelt, trailing fire and venting atmosphere, turned toward the flagship with its last moments of power. Point defense systems shredded the ship's hull, but momentum kept it coming. The dying captain's voice echoed one last time. "We're not trapped up here with you. You're trapped up here with us." The Roosevelt hit the flagship's starboard side. Explosion tore through 3 decks. Zalthek was thrown from his chair as the ship lurched sideways. Alarms screamed. Fires erupted across control panels. "Damage report." Zalthek pulled himself up, tasting blood. "Starboard shields down. Weapons offline. We're venting atmosphere on multiple decks." The damage control officer's hands shook as she read the displays. "Sir, we've lost 40% of the fleet. In 10 minutes, we've lost 40%. Zalthek stared at the tactical display. The human ships pressed their advantage, targeting wounded vessels with surgical precision. They weren't just fighting, they were hunting. "Send the emergency signal," he said quietly. "Call for reinforcements, all available fleets." "Sir, that will take hours, maybe days." "Do it, and get me the Emperor. He needs to know." Zalthek watched another Krathion ship die to a coordinated human strike. "We didn't conquer a primitive world. We walked into an ambush 50 years in the making." On Earth, in the bunker beneath the Alps, General Webb watched the battle with cold satisfaction. The Krathion were reeling. Good. Let them call for help. Let them bring more ships. Humanity had been sharpening its teeth in the dark for half a century. The prey had become the predator. The hunt had only just begun. Emperor Thraxus paced in his throne room on the imperial capital world of Kratheos Prime. 300 light-years from Earth, the walls were lined with trophies from 300 conquered species. Crystals from worlds that no longer existed. Banners from civilizations reduced to footnotes in imperial history. Each one a reminder that the Krathion Empire was eternal, unstoppable, supreme. The holographic display before him told a different story. 60% casualties, Fleet Admiral Corvin reported, his voice transmitted across the stars. "The humans have destroyed or disabled 6 of our 10 fleets. They fight like nothing we've encountered before, Your Majesty. They sacrifice themselves willingly. Their tactics are unpredictable, chaotic yet coordinated." Thraxus stopped pacing. 60%. In less than a day, the conquest of Earth was supposed to be routine. A minor expansion. A small, primitive world added to the Empire's collection. "Send everything," Thraxus said coldly. I want 20 more fleets at Earth within the week. Mobilize the reserve armadas. Pull ships from garrison duty across the Empire. I don't care what it costs. No species defies the Krathion and survives. As you command, Your Majesty. The transmission ended. Thraxus stared at the trophies on his walls. 300 species. 300 victories. One primitive world would not break that record. But in orbit around Earth, the humans were teaching the Krathion a lesson 10,000 years in the making. Lieutenant Sarah Hayes gripped the controls of her fighter as another Krathion destroyer exploded off her port side. Her squadron had started with 12 ships. Now there were 4. Martinez was gone. Okafor was gone. Kim had taken a direct hit 20 minutes ago, but the mission wasn't done. Target the carrier. Commander Wilson's voice crackled through the static. Yeah, we take out their fighter production, we buy Earth another hour. An hour. That's what they were fighting for. Not victory, not glory, just time. Time for the next wave to launch. Time for the big guns to recharge. Time measured in heartbeats, and the lives of pilots who had trained their whole lives for a war that wasn't supposed to happen. Sarah dove her fighter toward the Krathion carrier. A ship so massive it had its own gravity. Point defense fire lit up space around her. The fighter shook as near misses superheated her shields. The proximity alarms screamed so loud she turned them off 10 minutes ago. I'm hit, Wilson's voice said calmly. Too calmly. Engines are gone. Can't pull up. Sarah watched Wilson's fighter tumble toward the carrier's hangar bay, trailing fire. He wasn't trying to pull up anymore. He was aiming. Wilson, eject. You can still tell my kids I kept my promise, Wilson interrupted. I told them I'd keep Earth safe. I'm keeping it. The fighter hit the carrier's hangar bay at full speed. Explosion tore through the ship's interior like a chain of fire, detonating fuel reserves and ammunition stores. Secondary explosions rippled along the carrier's length. The massive ship began to list, venting atmosphere and debris. Sarah blinked away tears and locked onto her next target. Grief could come later, if there was a later. On the Roosevelt's sister ship, the Lincoln, Captain James Park watched his crew work with the efficiency of desperation. Half their weapons were offline. Life support was failing on 3 decks. They'd taken so many hits, the ship groaned with each maneuver like a dying animal. Sir, we've got 15 Krathion cruisers breaking formation, the tactical officer reported. They're making a run for Earth's surface. If they get through, they can bombard the underground cities. Park looked at the tactical display. The Lincoln was the only ship in position to intercept, but 15-to-1 odds weren't odds at all. They were a death sentence. Helm, intercept course. Full power to engines. The helmsman turned to look at him. Young, maybe 25. His hands hovered over the controls. Sir, we can't stop 15 ships. No, Park agreed. But we can slow them down, long enough for reinforcements to arrive. It's all Earth needs. A few more minutes. The crew exchanged glances. They all knew what this meant. Park saw the fear in their eyes. But he also saw something else. Determination. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology stolen from an alien probe. It was the willingness to stand between danger and everything they loved, even when the cost was everything. For Earth, Park said quietly. Earth, the crew echoed. The Lincoln turned toward the Krathion cruisers like a wounded lion facing a pack of wolves. The alien ships opened fire immediately, their weapons tearing into the Lincoln's failing shields. Explosions rocked the ship. Sections depressurized. Crew members died at their stations, but the Lincoln kept coming. Park rerouted everything to the forward shields. Power from life support. Power from weapons. Power from systems they'd need to survive. None of that mattered if Earth burned. Ramming speed, Park ordered. The Lincoln accelerated. The Krathion cruisers scattered, confusion breaking their formation. They'd expected the human ship to retreat, to surrender, what any rational species would do when faced with impossible odds. They didn't understand that humans weren't always rational. Sometimes humans were just stubborn. The Lincoln hit the lead cruiser head-on. Both ships exploded in a ball of fusion fire bright enough to see from Earth's surface. The shockwave caught 2 more Krathion ships, crippling their engines. The remaining 12 cruisers slowed, their charge broken, and in those precious seconds of confusion, 6 more human destroyers arrived, weapons blazing. In the command bunker, General Webb watched the tactical display with ancient eyes that had seen too much death. Each dot that disappeared was a ship. Each ship was a crew. Hundreds of lives snuffed out like candles. He knew many of them by name. Had trained some of them personally. The Krathian reinforcements are arriving, an aide reported. 20 more fleets. They're committed in everything, sir. Webb nodded slowly. Then so do we. Launch the secondary fleet. Everything we held in reserve. No more waiting, sir. That's our last advantage. Once they see what we have, there's no surprise left. They already know we're dangerous, Webb said. Now we show them we're deadly. Open a channel, all frequencies. I want every Krathian ship to hear this. The communication officer worked quickly. Channel open, sir. Webb stood straight despite his 73 years. Krathian Empire, this is General Marcus Webb. You came to Earth expecting slaves. You found warriors. You thought numbers would crush us, but you forgot something important, something your empire hasn't needed to remember for 10,000 years. Above Earth, the moon opened wider. Entire sections of lunar surface pulled back to reveal even more ships, not just military vessels. Civilian ships retrofitted with weapons. Mining vessels carrying payloads of nuclear warheads, construction platforms turned into mobile artillery. Humanity had weaponized everything it could fly. You forgot what it means to fight for your home, Webb continued. You conquer species who have nowhere to run. We're not running. This is our planet. Our families are here, our history is here, and we will defend it with everything we have and everything we are. The human fleet doubled in size, then tripled. Ships launched from hidden facilities on Earth's surface. From orbital platforms disguised as space debris, from the dark side of the moon where Krathian sensors hadn't looked carefully enough. You want to glass our cities? Webb's voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. Then you'll have to glass all of them. Every underground city, every tunnel, every bunker. And while you're trying, we'll be killing you. One ship at a time, one fleet at a time. Until either you leave, or we're all dead. In space above Earth, a Krathian commander listened to the transmission and felt something his species had forgotten. Not just fear, respect. The kind of respect predators give to prey that bites back hard enough to draw blood. Your empire is built on the backs of slaves who forgot how to fight, Webb said. Earth never forgot. We've been fighting each other for 10,000 years. War is in our blood. Violence is our history. And you just gave all of humanity a common enemy. The human fleet arranged itself into a wall between Earth and the Krathian armada. Battered ships held the line beside fresh ones. Fighters with damaged hulls flew in formation with newly launched squadrons. They were outnumbered, outgunned, out of time and out of luck. But they didn't retreat. So here's your lesson, Krathian Empire, Webb finished. We're not trapped up here with you. You're trapped up here with us. We've been waiting 50 years to teach you what happens when you threaten Earth. The fleets collided again in a storm of fire and fury. But something had changed. Krathian fought with coordination and superior numbers. The humans fought with fury and absolute conviction. And in the cold mathematics of war, sometimes conviction matters more than firepower. Because the Krathian were fighting for an empire, the humans were fighting for home. And there's no force in the galaxy more dangerous than someone protecting everything they love. The lesson had begun. And it was written in fire across the stars. The Krathian military outpost on Velix 7 had stood for 3,000 years. It orbited a mining world where the Silith species broke rocks in eternal darkness. Their own sun blocked by the massive processing stations that fed the Empire's endless hunger. The outpost commander, a veteran named Vexal, had overseen this station for 2 centuries. Nothing ever happened here. Nothing ever changed. Until the alarms started screaming. Unknown ships dropping out of FTL, his sensor officer shouted. Human signatures. How are they here? Earth is 200 light-years away. That call stared at the display in disbelief. 15 human warships materialized in perfect formation around the outpost. They shouldn't have FTL technology. Reports from Earth said they were barely holding orbit. How were they attacking deep inside Krathian space? The lead human ship broadcast on all frequencies, a woman's voice cold and clear. Krathian Outpost Velix 7. This is Captain Rodriguez of Earth Defense Fleet. You have 60 seconds to evacuate. We're liberating this system. Liberating. The word was almost funny. The Sol reached for the communication panel. This outpost is protected by Imperial law. You are in violation of 50 seconds, the human interrupted. We're not here to debate. We're here to free slaves. Below, on Velox 7's surface, something impossible was happening. The human ships broadcast a message that bypassed Krathion communication blocks, transmitting directly to the mining facilities. In the Silith language, the message was simple. People of Velox 7, Earth has come. Rise up. We're breaking your chains. Vexel watched his monitors in growing horror as the mining facilities erupted in chaos. The Silith workers, beaten down by generations of servitude, attacked their overseers. 3,000 years of oppression boiled over in minutes. The security forces were overwhelmed. The production centers went dark. An entire world rebelled in the time it took the Sol to process what was happening. 40 seconds, Captain Rodriguez said. I suggest you evacuate now. The human ships opened fire, not on the outpost. On the processing stations. The massive structures that blotted out Velox 7's sun exploded in sequences of brilliant light. One by one, they fell from orbit, and for the first time in 3 millennia, natural sunlight touched the planet's surface. Vexal fled with his crew. Behind them, the outpost burned. Below them, an enslaved species tasted freedom and roared with joy. And across the Krathian Empire, the same scene repeated on 100 worlds at once. On Earth, General Webb stood before a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots marked Krathion territories. Blue dots showed human strike teams. In the last 72 hours, the blue dots had spread like an infection across the Empire's outer systems. The captured FTL drives are working better than projected, Commander Hayes reported. She'd been promoted after the orbital battle. There weren't many officers left who'd survived those first hours. We've hit 73 sites. Glide depots, shipyards, slave processing centers. The Krathion military is in chaos trying to respond. Good, Webb said. They wanted to take Earth. Now they're learning that Earth takes back. How are the liberation broadcasts performing? Beyond expectations, sir. The enslaved species are rising across the Empire. The Krathian build everything on slave labor. Without it, their infrastructure is collapsing. Webb allowed himself a thin smile. The Krathion had ruled for 10,000 years because they'd forgotten the first rule of oppression. If you're going to enslave people, you'd better make sure they stay scared. The Krathian had gotten soft, complacent. They'd stopped expecting resistance. Earth had reminded the galaxy what resistance looked like. On the industrial world of Karth-9, human special forces moved through the shadows of a slave processing facility. Sergeant David Okonkwo led his team with hand signals, their armor absorbing light to render them nearly invisible. They'd trained for this mission in the Arizona desert, in simulations built from stolen Krathion data. No training prepared you for seeing it in person. The processing center held 10,000 beings. Families separated, children taken from parents, species from across the galaxy reduced to inventory numbers. Okonkwo had seen war, had seen death. But this was something else. This was systematic cruelty turned into bureaucracy. Charges set on the security mainframe, Corporal Zhang whispered. Ready when you are. Okonkwo nodded. The explosions were precise. Surgical. The security systems died instantly. The holding cells unlocked. The automated defense turrets powered down, and 10,000 enslaved beings looked up as the doors to their prisons swung open. Okonkwo activated his translator. People of Karth-9, we're from Earth. We're here to help you escape. Follow the green markers to the evacuation ships. Move quickly. The Krathion will respond soon. They didn't move at first. After years of captivity, freedom looked like a trap. Then a small child, species unknown, walked toward the door. Tentative. Testing. When nothing stopped her, she ran. And then everyone ran. The human team covered their escape, holding position as transport ships lifted thousands to safety. When Krathion security forces arrived, they found the facility empty and a message spray-painted on the wall in 15 languages. Earth remembers. Earth is watching. Earth does not forgive. On Kratheos Prime, Emperor Thraxus watched his empire burn. The holographic displays showed disaster on every front. 70% of the fleet destroyed or damaged. Slave revolts on 200 worlds. Production down 90%. Supply lines severed, and the humans kept coming. Your Majesty, we've located their base of operations, Admiral Corvin reported. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. None of them had. They're operating from mobile command ships. Then we hit their home, Thraxus snarled. Assemble a dreadnought fleet, Glass Earth. Turn it into a warning to the rest of the galaxy. Your Majesty, our dreadnoughts are scattered. It will take weeks to assemble a proper fleet, then take whatever ships we have. I want Earth destroyed, but before the order could be transmitted, every screen in the throne room lit up with the same image. A human face. Old, weathered, eyes like cold steel. Emperor Thraxus, General Webb said. I'm sure you're planning something dramatic. An attack on Earth, perhaps. Revenge for your fallen empire. Let me save you the trouble. The image shifted to show a human fleet in orbit around a planet that made Thraxus's blood run cold. Kratheos Prime, his home world. It's the seat of the Empire. The fleet shouldn't be there. Couldn't be there. The defenses were impregnable. Your orbital defense network had a vulnerability, Webb continued conversationally. You relied on automated systems maintained by slave workers. A funny thing about slaves, when someone offers them freedom, they're very cooperative. We've been in your system for 6 hours. Your defenses never saw us coming. Thraxus felt his legs weaken. You're bluffing. You wouldn't dare attack the capital. You're right. I wouldn't. Webb's expression hardened. Not unless you force me to. Here's what's going to happen, Thraxus. You're going to stand down. You're going to release every slave in your empire. You're going to dismantle your military. You're going to face justice. Justice. Thraxus laughed, but it sounded hollow. You think the galaxy will accept humans as rulers? You're primitives? Newcomers? We don't want to rule, Webb said quietly. We just want to make sure no one rules through slavery again. You have 24 hours to broadcast your surrender. Refuse, and we'll start with your palace. Your choice, Emperor. Die like a tyrant, or live to face the consequences of your crimes. The transmission ended. Thraxus stood in his throne room, surrounded by trophies from 300 conquered species, and realized he was about to become one himself. In orbit above Kratheos Prime, Captain Maria Santos watched the planet below and felt the weight of what they'd accomplished. 3 months ago, she'd been defending Earth against impossible odds. Now she sat in orbit above the enemy capital, holding a knife to the throat of an empire.
Captain.
We're receiving communications from the surface, her comm officer reported. Looks like government channels. Lots of panicked chatter. Let them panic, Santos said. They had 10,000 years to avoid this. They chose slavery. They chose conquest. They chose to threaten Earth. Her tactical officer, a young man named Chen, looked nervous. Captain, if they don't surrender, do we really glass the capital? There are billions of civilians down there. Santos looked at him steadily. No, Chen, we don't. That's the difference between us and them. We don't murder civilians. But they don't know that. And the fear of what we might do is worth more than what we actually would do. So it's a bluff. It's a lesson, Santos corrected. They need to learn that mercy is a choice, not a weakness. When they surrender, and they will, we'll show them what justice looks like. Real justice, not revenge. 23 hours and 47 minutes later, Emperor Thraxus appeared on every screen across the Empire. His 4 eyes were dim. His voice was broken. And his words echoed across 200 star systems. The Krathian Empire surrenders unconditionally to the humans of Earth. The galaxy held its breath. An empire that had stood for 10,000 years had fallen in less than a season. Not through superior numbers, not through overwhelming force, but through something the Krathian had forgotten existed. The will of a free people who refused to kneel. The purge was complete. Came the reckoning. The trial took place on a neutral station constructed in orbit around Velix 7, the first world Earth had liberated. The station was new, built by freed slaves working alongside human engineers. It stood as a symbol, not of conquest, but of cooperation, of what the galaxy could become when chains were broken. Emperor Thraxus stood in the center of a circular chamber, surrounded by representatives from 300 species. The species his empire had enslaved. Some for centuries, some for millennia. Their eyes held no mercy. Why should they? He'd shown them none. A Silith elder, her body scarred from generations in the mines, spoke first. Her voice trembled with rage held back for lifetimes. My grandmother died in your mines, and my mother died in your mines. I would have died in your mines. But Earth came. Earth broke our chains. Now we ask, what justice exists for 10,000 years of suffering? Thraxus said nothing. What could he say? Evidence was overwhelming. The crimes undeniable. His empire had been built on the backs of the broken, and now the broken demanded their due. General Webb stood among the observers, not as a judge but as a witness. This wasn't Earth's justice to deliver. This belonged to the people who'd suffered. Humanity had simply opened the door. What walked through it was up to them. The trial lasted 3 days. At the end, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. The sentence was life imprisonment, not death. Death would have been mercy. The freed species wanted Thraxus to live. To watch as everything he built was dismantled. To see the Empire erased not with fire, but with freedom. When the guards led him away, Thraxus looked at Webb. You could have killed me. Why didn't you? Webb met his gaze steadily. Because we're not you. It's the point. Across the former Empire, the reconstruction began. Shipyards that had built warships now constructed hospitals. Factories that had produced weapons now created tools. Mining operations continued, but the workers were paid, fed, respected. The Kratheon had built an empire on the principle that some beings existed to serve others. Earth introduced a different principle. All beings had the right to choose their own path. On Earth, Sarah Chen stood in Times Square for the first time since the invasion. Above her, the sky was blue again. No alien ships, no shadows. Just clouds and sunlight and the ordinary beauty of a world at peace. People walked past her, laughing, talking, living. They'd come so close to losing this. It's a simple, precious normalcy. Her phone buzzed. A message from her mother. Just 3 words and a heart emoji. Coming home soon. Sarah smiled through tears. Home, Earth, the planet that had refused to kneel. They'd done it, against impossible odds. Against an empire 10,000 years old, humanity had won. Not by becoming monsters, but by remaining human. In the command bunker, beneath the Swiss Alps, General Webb prepared for his final address. The war was over. The empire was dissolved. The freed species had formed a new coalition based on cooperation rather than conquest. The Galactic Assembly, they called it. Every species had a voice. Every world had a vote. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was better than chains. The communication officer gave him the signal. Every remaining Kratheon world was watching, every liberated species, and Earth, always Earth. People of the galaxy, Webb began. His voice was tired, felt every one of his 73 years. 3 months ago, the Kratheon Empire came to Earth. They expected slaves. They found something else. Something they'd forgotten existed after 10,000 years of easy conquest. They found resistance. He paused, gathering his thoughts. This was important. Maybe the most important thing he'd ever say. Earth didn't fight because we're stronger. We're not. We didn't fight because we're smarter. We're not. We fought because we remembered something simple, something true. Freedom is not given. Freedom is defended. And those who will not defend it do not deserve it. Across the galaxy, billions listened. Species who'd forgotten what freedom felt like, who'd accepted chains as normal, as inevitable. Webb's words stirred something ancient in them, something that slavery couldn't quite kill. The Kratheon Empire is gone, Webb continued. But empires don't die just because you defeat them. They die when the idea of empire itself is rejected. When people choose cooperation over conquest, and they choose justice over power, he leaned forward, intensity burning in his eyes. Earth could rule you now. We have the ships, the weapons, the momentum. We could build a new empire with humans at the top. Many of you expect that. Some of you fear it. The chamber was silent. Every being in the galaxy held their breath. We're not going to rule you, Webb said simply. We're going home. Back to Earth. Back to our families. Back to our lives. We didn't fight to become masters. We fought to remain free. And we fought so you could be free too. On Carth9. In the facility where Sergeant Okonkwo had freed 10,000 slaves, a monument was being built, not to humanity, to freedom itself. The freed species carved it from the same stone they'd once broken as prisoners, showed beings of 100 different worlds standing together. At the base, words in every language the galaxy knew. Here, chains were broken. Here, freedom was remembered. Here, Earth showed us the way home. Webb's address continued, but freedom comes with a warning. The Krathion won't be the last empire. There will be others. There will always be those who believe some beings exist to serve their betters, who think strength gives them the right to rule, who see chains as normal and resistance as rebellion. His expression hardened. To those future empires, hear this. Earth is watching. We're going home, but we're not forgetting. We're keeping the Prometheus fleet. We're maintaining the defenses we built. And if anyone, anywhere in this galaxy, tries to enslave the innocent again, they will find us waiting. The words carried a promise and a threat. Earth didn't seek war, but Earth would finish what others started. We didn't save you to control you, Webb said. We saved you so you could save yourselves. Build your own futures. Make your own choices. Live free. But remember this. Freedom requires vigilance. Peace requires strength. And the moment you forget that, the moment you accept chains as normal, that's the moment empires return. He stood straight despite his exhaustion. Earth will be watching, not as rulers, as neighbors, as friends. As the species that remembered what empires always forget, that some things are worth dying for, that freedom is one of them, and that humanity, for all our flaws, will never stop fighting for it. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy in 1,000 languages, the response was the same, not cheers. Something deeper. Respect. The kind of respect earned through action, not words. Through sacrifice, not speeches. On Earth, the Prometheus fleet returned home. Ship by ship, they descended from the moon's hidden hangar. Veterans stepped onto soil they'd fought to defend. Families reunited. Heroes returned, and life, ordinary and precious and free, continued. The moon closed slowly, the mechanical petals drawing together until the scars were hidden once more. To anyone watching from space, Earth's moon looked normal. Dead, gray, lifeless. But beneath the surface, the fleet waited, ready, watching, a promise carved in metal and fury. We are Earth. We do not kneel. We do not forget. General Webb retired the day after the victory celebration. He moved to a small house in Colorado where he could see the mountains. People asked him how it felt to save humanity. He always gave the same answer. He hadn't saved humanity. Humanity had saved itself. He'd just opened the door. At night, Webb would sit on his porch and look up at the stars. Somewhere out there, freed species were building new civilizations. Former slaves were becoming citizens. The galaxy was learning to walk without chains. It was messy, imperfect, but it was free. And if another empire rose, if another species decided conquest was their right, Earth would be waiting, because that's what humans did. They defended, they protected. They stood between darkness and everything they loved, not because they were stronger, not because they were smarter, but because they remembered the lesson that Krathion had forgotten. Some species are predators, some are prey. And humans, against all odds and common sense, had proven they were apex predators wearing the skin of civilization. Push them too far, threaten what they love, and the civilized veneer falls away. What remains is 10,000 years of evolution that says, fight, survive, win. The Krathion Empire learned that lesson. It cost them everything. The galaxy would not forget. And that's the story of how humanity deleted an empire from existence. Not with slavery, but with freedom. Not with cruelty, but with fury that burned brighter than stars. Because when you push humans to the edge, you discover something terrifying. We don't break, we bite back. If you love this story of human defiance and galactic revenge, smash that like button and subscribe for more epic HFY Sci-Fi content. Drop a comment telling me what should humanity do when the next empire shows up. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another tale of why aliens fear Earth. Next video, aliens laughed at human ship design until it survived a black hole. You won't want to miss it. Remember, in space, no one can hear you scream except humans. We will answer.